Now in this section we'll continue with the concept of VLANs. Like we have seen in the previous session, what is VLAN? VLAN divides one single broadcast domain into multiple broadcast domains. It minimizes the number of broadcasts and improves the performance on your networks. Now let us see what are the different types of VLANs we have and what's the difference between them. So majorly there are two types of VLANs we can create. We use something called static VLANs, which is based on the port numbers, and then we use something called dynamic VLANs. It's based on the MAC address. So let's try to understand what's the difference between these two. So the first thing we'll start up with the concept of static VLAN. Now static VLAN. Now before we get into the actual static VLANs, let us see how to create the VLANs on the switch. So in order to create the VLANs, we need to go to switch, and we just need to create a VLAN and VLAN number. So we need to say VLAN number, and this number can be any number from 2 to 1001, and then we can give some name for the specific VLAN. Okay, so this is how we can create the VLANs on any switch, and we can verify this by giving a command called show VLAN. Show VLAN is a command we can use for verification. So let us first try to create a VLAN, and then we'll come back on the difference between the static and the dynamic VLANs. Okay, now I got a console of one of the switch here. You can see the command line here. The first thing we'll verify the VLAN concept. I'll give show VLAN. Now by default there will be only just one VLAN. You can see there's only one VLAN, and all the ports are in the VLAN 1, and you can create the VLANs from 2 to 1001. So if you want to create the VLAN, we just need to go to the config mode as per our command line. Just give the number, and name is optional. And similar way, I'm creating another VLAN, VLAN 20, and the name is marketing something, and VLAN 30, VLAN 40, VLAN 50, like that we can create the VLANs. So we can either use 2, 3, 4, 5, something like that. And if you verify show VLAN, if I give a command called show VLAN, I can see the VLANs are created. Now if I give the name, it will take the specific name. If you don't define any name, it is going to default take this names like this. Now the next thing we'll see what is exactly static VLAN. Now in case of static VLAN, as I discussed, it's going to work based on the port numbers. Now let's take an example. I got a switch in my network here, and assume that there are some specific computers connected in my LAN, and I got a switch here. Now by default, as we discussed, there will be a VLAN 1, and by default all the ports will be in the VLAN 1. So let's assume that I got 24 ports, port number 1 to port number 24. Now the next thing is we can create the VLANs like we did in the previous example. We can create the VLAN 10, we can create some VLAN 20 with some name, VLAN 30, like that. So once we create the VLANs, now the VLAN 10 is belonging to sales department, let's say. Now in order to virtually separate, as I said, by default there will be only one broadcast domain, because there is only one VLAN. VLAN 1 is a default VLAN, and then there will be only one broadcast domain. But just now we have created multiple virtual LANs. Now the first step, you need to identify what are the specific computers belonging to the sales. Now assume that these are the 3 devices which belong to sales, or the specific computers which belongs to some of the sales users, and then there are some specific 2 computers belonging to the sales. Now your job is to identify on which port they are connecting. It's connecting on port number 1, 2, 3, let's say, and this is port number 4, port number 5, port number 6, and then this is port number 7 and port number 8, and then the remaining ports, let's say this is port number 9 and port number 10. Now our job is to identify those specific computers of sales, they are connecting on which port, and you need to shift that particular ports like port number 1, port number 2, port number 3, port number 7 and port number 8 into a separate VLAN. Now automatically any broadcast comes on port number 1, the switch will ensure that the broadcast goes only on port number 2, port number 3, port number 7, port number 8, which means it will be restricted within that particular VLAN. So now these 3 ports and these 2 ports, they become as if they are separate LAN, virtually separate LAN. Now they are like separate broadcast domain. Now similar way, if you want to do the same thing for other department, let's take an example. I got a marketing department. Now the VLAN 20. Now assume that these 3 ports belongs to marketing department. Now we need to shift port number 4, port number 5, port number 6. By default they are in the VLAN 1. We are shifting port number 4, port number 5, port number 6 into VLAN 20, that is the marketing department. So which means if any broadcast comes on port number 5, the switch will ensure that it will go only on port number 5, port number 6. Now these 3 ports become a part of the separate broadcast domain. Similar way, if you take another example of another department, let's say there's a VLAN 30, maybe IT department. Now these are the 2 computers belongs to IT. So we need to identify on which port they are connecting, port number 9, port number 10. Now we need to ensure that these 2 ports are on a different VLAN and we are shifting the ports. Now that's how your dynamic static VLAN is going to work. We are shifting the ports as per our requirement. Now here you can see port number 1, 2, 3, port number 7, 8. Let me write down once again 1, 2, 3, 7 and 8. They belong to a separate VLAN. Now to make this possible in the command line, we need to go to the command line. We need to say interface. In the config mode, we need to say range command. Now one thing, we can either do individual ports, like going to each and every port and doing it, but I prefer to use range command, where we can define f0 by 1 -3, which defines the continuation of the ports 1, 2, 3, and if there is no continuation, you can use comma, and we can say f0 by 9, not 9, 7 -8. Now whenever I use hyphen, it represents that it is a continuation of the ports. If I say f0 by 1 -10, it means all the 10 ports from 1 to 10. If you don't have a continuation, in that case we can use f0 by 15 comma f0 by 19, something like that. Okay, so in my scenario I'm not using that many ports here. So this way we can shift multiple ports in one command. And the next command, we need to say switch port mode access, and then we are going to say switch port access VLAN. We need to tell which VLAN I want to apply this particular ports in the VLAN 10. Now once I give this command, whatever the ports I have defined in the range command, they all will become a part of the VLAN 10, and they will be shifted into the VLAN 10, and we can verify with a command called show VLAN. So let's quickly configure and verify this. I'm going to assume this is my scenario. I'll go to the command line of my switch here. So let me just apply a small font here. So let's go to the command line here. On the command line, I'm going to shift port number as per the diagram. In my diagram, I'm going to shift port number, so I'm going to say interface range f0 by 1 -3, and then f0 by 7 -8. So either you can write 7 -8 or 7 8. So the f0 by 7 f0 by 8. Switch port mode access. What is access, what is trunk? I'll be discussing that much more in detail in my next video, where we'll be discussing about the access links and the trunk links. It says switch port access VLAN 10. Now for verification, we can use show VLAN. Now we can see VLAN 10, we have the ports in the VLAN 10. Now any broadcast comes on port number 1, if it is coming, it will only go within that particular VLAN. Okay, so similar way, let's do the same thing for the other VLAN. What is that? Port number 4, 5, 6. So we'll shift port number 4, port number 5, port number 6, part of the VLAN 20, and then port number 9 and 10 a part of the VLAN 30. So first 4, 5, 6. So interface range f0 by 4 -6. Switch port mode access, switch port access VLAN 20. And interface f0 by 9 -10. Sorry, you have to do is range command. And then switch port mode access, and I'm going to shift into VLAN 30. And if I verify show VLAN, now you can see port number 1, 2, 3, 7 and 8, they are part of the VLAN 10. and VLAN 20 they are 4, 5, 6, and the VLAN 30 they are 9 and 10. So now there are 4 different broadcast domains. You can see VLAN 1 is a broadcast domain. By default all the ports are in the VLAN 1. Now we have shifted those ports into the respective other VLANs. Now if any broadcast packets comes on port number 1, the switch will ensure that it will send only on port number 2, port number 3 and port number 7 and port number 8. It will not go to any other devices. Now our requirement is different departments. We are going to say that they should be on a different networks so that they should not broadcast, that they should not communicate with each other, and also they are on different VLANs. So now this is the whole idea of creating the VLANs here. So that's what I have discussed just now. And this is a syntax here. That's what we just did. And one port can be a member of just one VLAN. And for verification, we can use either show VLAN or show VLAN brief command for verifying. And this is something what we did for creating the VLANs and then shifting the ports. Now shifting the ports, we can do just one port, but that's something not really recommended. When you want to shift multiple ports at the same time, I always recommend you to use range command. If you just have one port, there is no need for the range command. We can just go to the interface and then give switch port mode access and switch port access VLAN and VLAN number.